The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's Toolbox Talk. My name is Sean Frey, and I will be in the background this morning, guys, handling the system. Just before we do get into the session, guys, as it is only a 30-minute session, just very quickly, at any point in the webinar, if you guys do have any questions whatsoever, pop them in the questions tab. You will not disturb Chris as he's going through this morning's Toolbox Talk. They come through to me, and then I get them ready for him. If it is a question on the service itself, I will go ahead and answer it. But if it is a question on the source material, I will go ahead and leave it for Chris at the end of the webinar when we have a bit more time. So guys, as soon as we've finished with it, we will go through the questions so that those who need to leave can leave if they don't have any questions. But other than that, guys, I am going to go ahead and hand it over to Chris to continue with this morning's Toolbox Talk. Chris, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much, Sean, and a very warm welcome to all of our attendees this morning. Brought to you once again by FEM and IOPSA, this Toolbox Talk, which is accredited by SAOSH for one CPD point, and also proudly presented by myself, Chris, from OHSS Consulting. As a member of IOPSA and SAOSH, I really do take occupational health and safety very seriously. And this morning's Toolbox Talk that we're going to be discussing is on accident prevention. Now, I just want to start off by saying that when we speak about accidents or incidents, it automatically conjures in our mind something negative. And really, this is not the target of what we want to accomplish when doing these Toolbox Talks. So for those of you who are listening in, when we speak about accident prevention, we want to have a positive light on it to say there is a way to prevent accidents. We really don't want to start our day or week off on a negative note. So although we're going to be discussing a few things that might seem negative or might shine a bad light on the way we do things, because we are going to be speaking about what causes incidents and accidents. And you'll find that the main cause is really people. It's because the human element in doing any task is really the problem behind most incidents and accidents. And a lot of the times it comes down to, inadequate training, or perhaps we just don't know what we are supposed to be doing. So really, guys, we want to have a positive toolbox talk this morning. So when discussing accident prevention, we're going to ask for you to give us feedback. Please give us some positive feedback. Obviously, if I say something wrong, I don't know everything. I'm learning every single day in the health and safety industry. Only been in it for just under 9 years now, but still that's not long enough to know everything there is. And I really encourage you to please give us as much information from your side as possible. So if you hear something today, if it is something wrong, please correct me. I do appreciate that. But if you have comments or suggestions, please give us those comments and suggestions as Sean mentioned. And you can do that via the chat or emailing us, chris@ohss.co.za, or just drop us a mail. We really appreciate all the feedback from you guys. I see a lot of you are joining in from health and safety organizations. Please do so as well. Any information that we can have from you in the industry is really appreciated. The more we share information about health and safety and come together to assist people in health and safety, that's really we're going to have a start of a positive attitude or a positive behavior towards safety. And this morning, in this Toolbox Talk on accident prevention is exactly the same. So why do accidents happen? As we mentioned, generally it is because of human error. You'll notice there are people not thinking. We don't follow instructions. And oftentimes, we do not put our training into practice. Now, we do get training at times, but maybe the training class or the facilitator was a bit mundane, like me sometimes early on a Tuesday morning. When I haven't had my coffee, then I might put you to sleep with the way I speak. But really, when we have this training, try and think about the reason for the training, not just being in class or having a day off work. That training is there to really give you a better standard of health and safety. So try and put our training into practice immediately as we are finished. Use it in your day-to-day tasks. And then if we have any handling or storing of any materials, oftentimes it's because of overexertion or the incorrect or unsafe handling of these types of materials. It could be hazardous chemical substances. It could be stock that we are packing. It could be something as simple as a task to just pack bricks on one side of a scaffolding before we start using them. All of this unsafe manual handling is going to start leading or identifying causes of incidents and accidents. And that brings us to our third one, the overloading of those platforms or scaffolds. So first of all, we might not handle the materials correctly. Secondly, we might then overload platforms or even ourselves, our bodies, because we cannot carry very heavy weights. But it's generally because we're in a rush. If I hurry, I can go home early. If I can get the job done quicker, I can move on to the next task. And that's really where incidents or accidents are starting to occur. And in the industry, we are finding that aside from your very big catastrophic incidents, such as bumping and crushing on construction sites, as well as falling to a lower level, which is two of the biggest concerns that we are currently having in the industry at the moment, your smaller ones that are happening in and around offices, workshops, or even in environments such as the hospitality industry, you're slipping, tripping, and being injured from falling objects is probably the highest incident ratings at the moment. And then what I've just recently found out in the labor statistics on incidents and accidents is overexertion. And that is where we try and overexert our body to do too much. And that's when we are getting sprains and strains or damage to our skeletal and muscles. So really, we are incorrectly using or abusing not just plant and equipment, but even our own bodies. And this is really where it comes down to why incidents or accidents are constantly happening. Now, you might be one of those people that says, incidents don't happen to me. You know, accidents happen to other people. Well, it only has to happen to you once. But we really do not want you to learn from bumping your own head. It took me about 3 weeks to start walking again after I snapped my hamstring off of my hip, purely because I was lifting something that was too heavy. And that was, once again, human error. I did it. It was my fault. I shouldn't have been doing that. I should have looked at the procedures, the safe working procedure, and then obviously done it correctly. But because I didn't put my training into practice, I then injured myself. And all I did was hurt myself. But possibly I could have injured somebody else. And I'm very thankful every day that I haven't done this. But by using faulty equipment or maybe making homemade repairs, illegally removing guards or barriers, these are the types of things that humans do constantly, feeling that they will get away with it. And it is true, you might get away with it for some time. But as these pictures that you're seeing in the bottom right-hand corner show, it only has to happen once. So again, we want to put a positive spin on this. We don't want you to start your day off negative, but can you change? Is there something that you might see that you are doing within these little sections that we are speaking about that you find yourself guilty of? Well, don't beat yourself up. Don't point fingers to anybody else. Let's start today and try and change that. Think of yourself. Am I failing to wear the correct type of PPE? Do I ignore safety signs or warning devices? Perhaps I'm not preventing incidents and accidents because I'm looking at the others. But there's a few things for you to think about. And really, I want to speak to each of you individually. The cost of accidents include pain, suffering, ongoing disability, and potential fatalities. Not one of us sitting in the audience today have not heard of somebody dying or have maybe seen adverts, videos, or even presentations such as the one that you're seeing in front of you today, where it doesn't speak about somebody dying because of just human error. Incidents and accidents are a reality. They can also result in the loss of earnings, incapacity for a job, inability to support our families. One of the most important things to me is my family. So really not being able to support them is an extremely important reason for me to want to prevent incidents and accidents. And then as an employer, you face financial and time costs in compensation, loss of working time, loss management during investigations, and possible fines because of negligence. So employers, you have a very big task. Under Section 8 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it is your duty to inform, instruct, train, and provide supervision for employees. But employees, under Section 14, it is your responsibility to work safely. So really, safety starts with me. All of us have the opportunity to work safe and to have a positive attitude toward accident prevention. Now let's just take a look at a case study. And you can discuss this after the Toolbox talk this morning as well, amongst you as groups. I know a lot of people that are signing in perhaps have additional employees with them in the room, and we'd like to welcome all of you and just say, if you have any questions yourself, please, put it to the person that's logging in. Perhaps they can ask the question on your behalf. But a case study that comes to us from the UK is from 2002. Actually, it happened in 2000. And a convenience store was prosecuted in January of 2002 because of a tripping accident to a customer in September of 2000. Now, what happened is the customer tripped over a plastic binding that normally holds newspapers together, and that's purely because of bad housekeeping. And this caused this person to injure their hip, and she was unable to work for 5 months. Now, remember, if we just go back to the previous slide there, the very first point, it said the cost of accidents include pain. Well, definitely she was in pain. Suffering. Well, she was unable to really continue working for 5 months. So definitely she suffered as well as her family. And there's a very big possibility that that hip would not really heal properly. So ongoing disability was a very, very big part of this incident. And there is always a potential for that person to have a fatal injury. And it might not even have been the cause of the actual slip that killed her, but maybe later down the line because of blood clots from surgery that could cause her death. So really, the repercussions or the ripple effect from small incidents and accidents can cause severe, major, or even catastrophic incidents later. So let's take a look at what happened. Well, the management of the store had previously been warned about housekeeping. So they knew that they were supposed to do it. And let's be honest, guys. Housekeeping is general knowledge. We do it at home. Before somebody is coming to visit us, do we not quickly run around to make sure it's clean? Well, that's because we want to be proud of our homes. Well, I'd like to ask you, do you not want to be proud of your working environment? Take a look around you. Many people are watching you on a day-to-day basis, performing your individual tasks. Doing it in a clean environment will make you feel proud. Now, these management who had been warned were even served improvement notices. They were told, please keep the shop clean. What eventually happened? Well, in January of 2002, the Magistrates Court fined them 509,000 rand. That's 45,000 pounds, because this is from the UK. So I just converted it according to what the currency was in 2002. And there we can see 500,000 rand is what this company was charged. So really, loss of income for the company, loss of the ability to work for 5 months, injury to a person's body. This is all because a simple piece of plastic was laying on the ground. So guys, in the picture on the bottom right-hand corner, and I myself am also to blame. I've done this many times, so please don't feel like I'm saying it to you, but I'm not at fault myself. It does happen to me. I say to myself, I'll clean it up later. But really, that's where the problem lies. If something is dirty, if we have spilled a chemical, or even water, or any liquid, if we have dropped papers, plastic, or even some debris from maybe dismantling something, piping from all of you plumbers, from those of you doing wet works, brickworks. Do we leave our environment free from hazard and risk for those around it, even for ourselves? So guys, don't clean up later. Clean it up immediately, because one piece of plastic could cost you your entire livelihood. R500,000 may not seem like a lot of money to many of you. For some of you, it's everything. This could cost us our entire companies. So guys, small incidents and accidents that may seem insignificant have a potential loss for any of us if it occurs. So, what are the main causes of incidents and accidents? Just to, go over it once again. We do not want to be a statistic. Now, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, overexertion is the number one cause of workplace injury. And that's because we often we want to rush the job, or we want to finish it up. And I think as a man myself, I often do this. I don't want to ask for help. I want to do it on my own. And guys, if you are guilty of this, rather ask for a hand. Rather get somebody to assist you with that heavy box or those heavy tools. And then slipping, tripping, and falls are your second highest incident rating currently. Poor housekeeping rating there at 3, taking shortcuts, distractions, and lack of training. Now, this is just research that I've done over the past week from the previous Toolbox Talk. I've looked at quite a few different incident and accident ratings throughout the world. This is not just on South Africa, and this is really what I've come up with. So guys, if you have any extras, any case studies, anything that you'd like to add, please send it back to us. If you're not sending it back to us, take a few minutes after this Toolbox Talk and perhaps discuss that. But again, I want to just let you know, be positive about accident prevention. We don't want to leave here after this Toolbox Talk feeling negative, because then we all work negatively. If we have a positive view of prevention, because we can stop incidents and accidents, that's going to go a long way in assisting us to prevent them and not having these little pictures happen to us. So continual prevention. We want to take our risk and manage it. Now, it is impossible to get rid or eliminate every single hazard or risk there is in all our industries. Oftentimes, we can substitute the type of task that we are performing. We can use the hierarchy of controls and see where we can mitigate the risk factors and make it safer for us. But oftentimes, we cannot eliminate everything. But we can have continual prevention. In other words, a positive viewpoint to controlling incidents and accidents will come if we don't remove guards and barriers, if we don't handle hazardous substances without knowing the hazards first. Go to that MSDS, understand what the hazards are for handling, storing, or even using that type of chemical. They're not using plant or equipment unless suitably trained. Oftentimes we might be trained, but we don't feel confident in operating a forklift or using a crane. Well, then rather ask for assistance. Always comply with laid down procedures, those of legislation as set out in the Occupational Health and Safety Act and all the regulations that are applicable to our industry, as well as organizational procedures. Each company perhaps have their own procedures based on the OSH Act or regulations, but it's more on best practice. So they've taken the OSH Act and they've just made a higher standard of health and safety. So please remember, we want to understand what the organization requires of us, what our own duties are to health and safety, as well as what is prescribed in legislation. And then always wear suitable PPE as applicable. We know in the health and safety industry that PPE is the last resort, but PPE is also mandatory. It is the last resort before an incident normally occurs. Now, PPE is not going to protect you from very bad incidents and accidents. We'll be honest. If you're going to have a crushing situation, your hard hat is obviously not going to protect you from that. But what we are trying to do in the industry is prevent the small, seemingly insignificant incidents and accidents to those of you out in the field. Those smaller ones have the potential of becoming very large incidents and accidents. So what we try to do is we have lead indicators, we start seeing where all these small to medium incidents and accidents occur. And then we put in place systems of work, safe working procedures, method statements, better risk assessments. And then we try to manage those incidents and accidents from becoming a lot more dangerous, a lot more fatal. So something as simple as wearing the correct PPE. You might think it's uncomfortable, your glasses fog up, the hard hat isn't comfortable, the safety boots get hot, your overalls are hot. Guys, they might seem like it's uncomfortable, but I'll be honest, a wheelchair is far more uncomfortable. A hospital bed is far more uncomfortable. Death, obviously, is far more uncomfortable. So wear the PPE, even though it may be the last resort. Another big one that comes from many of our industries, a lot of guys email me about this, is horseplay. We are not allowed to engage in horseplay because it can result in hazards and injury to the workers around us. Do not misuse or abuse any equipment provided for safety. Once again, coming directly from the OSH Act. Not using any defective equipment or plant, and not carrying out homemade repairs. Oftentimes we do this, we do a quick job just to get the thing working again so that we can finish the job. But these homemade repairs are often the causes of flying objects or defective plant or equipment breaking, damaging, or even exploding to the fact that it injures or kills people. Employing good hygiene standards, something as basic as washing your hands. Using the correct tool for the job. Every tool has its purpose. Know what the purpose is and use the right tool for that job. And then lastly, obeying site safety rules and signs. So would you agree that if we had to take a positive view to continual incident and accident prevention by following these few guidelines, that it would go a long way in preventing incidents and accidents? Well, definitely. But we have to have the behavior of health and safety. We have to think safely. Because before every action, there is a thought. So if we think positively and we think safely, then the action will be positive and safe. So let's recap on a few things to prevent accidents. Well, one thing we can do is set goals, set targets for ourselves. Aside from those set forth within our policies for occupational health and safety, or your safety, health, and environmental policies, we want to set our own personal goals and then test those processes. Test yourself. Check to see whether you did wear all the PPE. Check to see whether you were alert, whether you were paying attention, whether you were following instructions. And then evaluate the outcome. Were you safe throughout that day? You can evaluate this based on the method statements, safe working procedures, safe operating procedures, to see whether you perform the task within those guidelines. And then analyze yourself. Do not analyze others. Analyze yourself to see whether you could have continual improvement. Is there something you could do better? Is there something that I could do that would have prevented a near miss, a minor, major, or catastrophic injury? And then we want to learn from our mistakes. And let's be honest, we do make mistakes. It's one of the natures of the beast, being a human. We make mistakes. But one of the other natures is that humans are also prone to good learning habits. And if we employ these habits and become very positive to our view of health and safety, we can learn not just from our own mistakes, but from the mistakes of others. In fact, even the case study that we have about good housekeeping is something that we can learn from. And what will this bring to us? Improvement. It will bring improvement to ourselves, to our working environment. Even the quality of work that we perform will be better. And I know many of us think that health and safety, officers, managers, we just want to delay projects or stop the job from happening. That is not true. Health and safety goes hand in hand with production. If you start safely, work safely, and end safely, you'll find that your production is a lot better. Because if an incident or accident happens, the cost of downtime, the cost of compensation will lose a lot more production. So guys, Health and safety, as well as production, can be done at the same time. All we have to do is have a positive view to our accident prevention, our risk management, and also the policies and procedures that are in place in our organization. Well, thank you very much for listening to me go on about incidents and accidents this morning. As always, I said to you that I will always bring you a Did You Know section at the end of our Toolbox Talks. So here's just a little Did You Know, a few definitions of some of the things that we spoke about today. An unsafe act is a performance or task or other activity that is conducted in a manner that even may threaten the health and safety of workers. So remember, an unsafe act does not necessarily end up in an incident. It just has the potential to end up in an incident. And this is where we can maybe mention horseplay. Horseplay, victimization at work, really when we're bullying somebody, that has the potential to really become something more dangerous. Sean, I think your mic is on there. Unsafe condition are hazards that, once again, have the potential to cause injury or death to an employee. And here's just an example. These hazards include erroneous safety procedures, malfunctioning equipment or tools, or failure to utilize necessary safety equipment, such as goggles or mask or any other mandatory PPE. And then finally, the definition of incident, and this is according to our OHS ISO standard 18001, work-related events in which an injury or ill health, regardless of severity or fatality, occurred or could have occurred. And there's 3 notes. An accident is an incident which has given rise to injury, ill health, or fatality. The note 2, an incident when no injury, ill health, or fatality occurs may also be referred to as a near miss, near hit, close call, or dangerous occurrence, also falling within the category of incident. And finally, it can also mean an emergency situation or a particular type of incident. Well, that's all from me, guys. We thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate the time and that you've taken out half an hour every Tuesday morning. We look forward to seeing you next week for our new topic on PPE, personal protective equipment, and how we can use it properly. What type of PPE must we use, and how can we look after our PPE so that it looks after us? So from myself, Chris at OHSS Consulting, and on behalf of FEM, IOPSA, and SAOSH, we thank you very much for having a positive attitude toward health and safety. Sean, I'll hand it over back to you.
Thanks so much, Chris. We do have a question from the audience. The question reads, back relating to what you were talking about earlier, is the UK have taken action, but what about South Africa? I see very little punishment for incidents in South Africa. For example, pit toilets. It's not the first time the government has been warned or a death has occurred.
This is very important, guys. It has come up about 2 weeks ago. I was chatting to somebody in the health and safety industry specifically on that topic. It is something that I'm not a fay with myself. I was actually listening to it as a third-party representative there. And really, it is something that South Africa can pick up their socks on. But it all starts with us. Really, guys, we cannot expect the government to change and look after our safety in such a way that they are going to prevent us from having incidents or accidents. It really starts with us. It starts with us on ground level. So the only way that we are going to assist the government in changing is by recording incidents and accidents. And when we record these and we give it to the necessary Department of Labor, FEM, they are compiling lead indicators to show the government at the end of the day what are the actual issues. The problem is we often have an incident or accident and we forget about it because it wasn't so major. But if it happens to 1,000 people and we don't know the other 999, you might have thought of it as an isolated incident. So guys, bring these things up at SAOSH. If you're not a member of SAOSH, go ahead and try and become a technical or a corporate member there and bring these relative ones up to them as well. Niels Nokia, what a brilliant man to deal with. If you have more questions or suggestions like this, email me, Chris at OHSS Consulting, or OHSS rather, .co.za, and I will put forth your questions or queries to them as well and see if we cannot get some results. Definitely, this is something that we would want to pick up our standard of health and safety in South Africa? Thanks very much for that question.
All right, we do have another two that have come in. The first one reads, if you see an incident on a site, are you allowed to report it if it is not part of your team, but another contractor or even the client?
Well, guys, this really is an interesting one. We have worked on a lot of construction sites, and normally what happens is you get targeted as an impimpi, somebody that's tattletaling. And really, that's not the reason why we want to report incidents or accidents. Every single site has a procedure. There's either a near miss or incident and accident reporting procedure. And that's not just for yourself, it's for any unsafe act or condition that you see. The difference is how we approach or how we report those things. Generally, what we want to do is point fingers and blame somebody. But if your attitude toward it is positive and you go to the health and safety department and you point out a potential incident or accident, regardless whether it's the client or a small contractor on site, it doesn't matter who it is. All of us are the same or equal when it comes to incidents or accidents. That procedure needs to be followed. So yes, you are allowed to report any incident or accident regardless of who has it on site, as long as you are following the correct procedure for that site or that organization. If it is an incident that falls within the section 24 or 25 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, please remember that strict action must be taken on those specific incidents because they must be reported to the Department of Labor. Thanks, Sean.
Perfect. And the last question reads, what happens if you have a toolbox talk with your staff before work about being careful and cleaning where they see dirt and hazardous objects, but they do not do that and someone gets hurt? What happens then?
Well, look, really, that's where a very good incident and accident investigation must take place. Any time there is something that goes wrong on site, specifically when we are upholding our duty of Section 8 by informing and training our staff, things can still go wrong. But if we lead by example, and then I'm speaking to all of you as managers out there, visual felt leadership in the industry is extremely important. Often we see somebody else spilling and we expect them to clean up. But if we realize that it can become an accident, we should take the initiative and clean it up ourselves. Even if it might feel like it's beneath us, remember it goes a long way to a positive attitude towards incident prevention. But what I can suggest on that then is do not change the topic of your toolbox talk until you have rectified the issue. If you find the issue is housekeeping, keep talking about housekeeping. Keep showing by example that housekeeping is important. Don't move over to other topics like a lot of health and safety consultants will tell you, you need to have a new topic all the time. Other topics may not be pertinent to you. So use something that if there's an issue, work on that issue, and then make sure you have a very good disciplinary procedure for your company. If you notice that somebody is wrong, it's not about the blame game. But if somebody is to blame because they are not performing their duty properly, you need to have a disciplinary hearing with that person individually. Please do not call them out in a group or a crowd, as this can just, take you up to HR and you can have big issues there. Just follow the correct procedure for disciplining that person. Thanks, Sean.
All right, some more questions have come in. The next one reads, when driving past a construction site and noticing unsafe acts or conditions, are you allowed to stop at the site as a safety professional and address these as a third party?
Well, look, I don't see anything wrong with this. I don't know what, I've never seen any legislation on it. Normally, I myself have been a victim of this. I drive past a few construction sites. I see the guys climbing up scaffolding without harnesses or on the side of the scaffold. Generally, if you shout or scream at that person, they're not going to listen. What I normally then do is I just go into the site. I ask for the safety department. I speak very nicely to the safety, the manager or the safety officer that's in charge. I tell him what happened. I ask him for his email address. I send through the email to show that I've actually tried to do something with health and safety. And generally at those stages, I will offer a free toolbox talk to them or a free induction training at a time that's convenient for them, and I'll handle certain things. If I see that it is something that is extremely dangerous, we're talking about things that can become catastrophic, then generally I'll try and get a hold of the client to tell them what's happening there, or the safety agent for that site. A lot of times people don't want to be told that they're not doing things the right way. But guys, for those of you in the health and safety industry, we need to change our perception. If somebody else in the health and safety profession comes up to you and tells you that there is something wrong, let us be positive about it, because at the end of the day, it could affect many lives, possibly even our own or those of our family. Would you not want somebody coming to you to tell you that there's a potential for hazards on a site if it was going to affect your employees or even your family? I think all of us would agree that we would want that. So really, for those of you who asked that question, thank you very much for that. Please continue to do that. As a health and safety professional, you are obligated to bring it to the attention to protect lives. That's really what we want to do. And for those of you who may be approached by this person as a health and safety professional, please just be humble enough to accept it, that not all of us are perfect. We can always improve. And thanks very much for that question. I'll definitely try and do that myself, change my mentality when somebody tells me, Chris, you've done something wrong, and rectify it. Thank you very much for those questions.
All right, the next question is from the same person, and I do think you've just answered it, but just in case you want to add something, I'm going to give you the question anyway. The question reads, what is the best route to follow in order to address these issues?
So Sean, basically the same thing. Handle it with a person that's responsible on that site at that point in time, the on-site safety officer, safety manager. Generally, that's the best way to start. You don't want to go over anybody's heads. You might just cause, a little bit of negative feelings between people, and really that's not our intention. If there's no change or you do get brushed off, feel free to take it higher. Go to the principal contractor then and go and speak to them. Perhaps even speaking to the project manager, the 8.1 on site. They generally have a very good grasp of all the subbies on site. Would be good then for you to actually have proof, maybe the name of the contractor or whatever it is. Maybe they've got a little bit of a branding or a logo. But really what our intention is not to point blame, because if that is your motivation, you're not going to come right. But if you are sincere about it, generally the people will see that. They will see your sincerity. They'll see that you are genuine about protecting health and safety. And I will be honest, I'm not going to speak for anybody else in the industry, but if somebody came up to me and they were genuine, I would really listen. I can't say the same for everybody out there. You might catch them on a bad day, but just keep going, keep pursuing it, even if you have to eventually get right up to client, even going up as far as the site agent. Thanks, Sean.
All right. It looks like, that is all of the questions. We do just have a comment here. It says, thank you. I have done this before, but obviously people do get offended sometimes. But I think the approach is important. But that is all of the comments and correspondence we have from the audience. So would you like to end off?
Yeah, thank you very much for everyone that was joining today, all of the attendees, from those of you from the health and safety industry to those of you on the ground actually performing this work. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you very much, Sean. We don't hear from you much, but we want to say thank you very much for being a part of this initiative to bring health and safety to everybody out there.
No, perfect. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us this morning. Thanks, Chris. The time you take out of your mornings every single Tuesday morning to actually present, and the time you take to actually present these webinars, I do think you deserve some credit there as well. But guys, I am going to go ahead and end off the session now. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, and I hope to see everyone same time next week. Bye-bye.